In this video, we're gonna talk about how many meals you should be eating per day for fat loss. This is a question I get asked a lot, and I think people are overthinking or not thinking about this in the correct manner, so let's talk about it. So, the main thing that you need to understand is accurately tracking your calorie and macro breakdown is what is most important. So, theoretically, it doesn't matter if you eat one meal or 100 meals per day. If you accurately track your calories and macros and you hit your calorie and macro breakdown, you are going to get to your goal. And if you don't know what this calorie and macro breakdown is, go back to one of the previous videos and I show you how to hammer these calories and macros out for your goal. But when you know how to eat for your goal and what you should be eating per day from a calorie and macro standpoint, that is the most important thing that you can know. Okay, so now it doesn't really matter if we eat one meal or 10 meals per day, but what matters the most is are we eating the correct calories and macros? Okay, I can't say that enough. That is the most important thing. People get hung up on how many meals should I eat. Like, it doesn't matter if you eat once per day. If you eat too many calories, you're not going to lose weight. Okay? Now, having said all that, there is a less ideal and more ideal way to go about this. So let's talk about that. So the first thing is the most ideal is going to be really individual dependent. Okay? And what I mean by that is, like, what does your schedule look like? Everyone has different days. Okay? Everyone, what works best for me is not necessarily what's going to work best for you. If you have time to eat in the morning and you're hungry in the morning, so you eat at 9 a.m. and then you have plenty of time for lunch, so you eat again at noon, and then you have a generic time for dinner and you eat at dinner, and you can get your calories and macros in those 3 meals, great. That works great for you. Okay, so you should do that. As long as you're hitting your calorie and macros, you're gonna be good. Now, let's talk about, there are some least ideal ways. So let's touch on those real quick. So in terms of eating for fat loss, as you guys know, you're going to be in a calorie deficit of 25%. There are some least ideal ways. So 1 meal per day is not, in my opinion, is not the most ideal, okay? If that works for you, great, more power to you. And if that's what's been working for you, then, don't let me sway your mind. But if you're someone coming in this and you're thinking, oh, how many should I eat? I would probably not suggest 1 meal per day, okay? It's a lot of calories that you need to eat in 1 meal. And, say your protein goal is 160 grams per day. Like, you got to eat 160 grams of protein in 1 meal. Kind of hard to do, okay? Especially when you're new to tracking your calories and macros. And then it also involves you not eating for a long period of time. So if you have this 1 meal at 6 p.m. and you're done eating by 6:30, like, you don't eat again until 6 p.m. the next day, like, that's kind of like a daunting thing to think about. It's kind of hard. Another thing I didn't actually put in this PDF that I just thought of right now is also it's not most ideal from a performance standpoint either. I know performance is not our main priority, but like when we're lifting consistently and we're getting cardio in, like, we want to feel good, and we are not always going to feel good if you're going like, long periods of time without eating. Okay, so I would kind of say 1 meal per day is probably not very ideal for most people. And then 5+ meals per day is not going to be most ideal for someone who's eating in a fat loss phase. Okay, if you're tracking your calories and macros and you're eating to lose weight or and lose body fat, 5 meals is a lot of meals. Okay, so for me, like, just in general, like, I don't want to make 5 meals per day. Like, that is just like a headache to me. So that's like one negative. The other thing is, when you're eating in a 25% calorie deficit, if you're dividing the calories that you have for the day up into 5 meals, it's just like, that's just not very many meals per day. Or sorry, that's just not very many calories per meal. Okay, so like if you have 1,800 calories to eat in a day and you divide that up by 5, I'm terrible at math, but what is that? Let's say mine's 1856 divided by 5 meals. That's only 371 calories per meal. Okay, so, in my opinion, if I'm eating 1,856 calories in a day, I'm going to eat 2 to 3 meals, because that's going to be, way more calories than 371 per meal. That's not very many calories at all. Okay, 5 meals per day could make sense if you're eating in a calorie surplus, if you're trying to gain weight. Then obviously you're eating a lot of food, a lot of calories per day. So now it would make more sense to divvy that up into 5 meals, okay? But if we're eating for fat loss in a calorie deficit, usually not very ideal. Now, most ideal is going to be a lot of, again, this is a lot of individual things apply to this. Most ideal, I'm going to say, is anywhere from 2 to 4 meals per day. 2 to 4 meals per day when you're in a fat loss phase is enough meals to get enough calories in. But four might be too many for some people, and that's fine. So then stick to 2 to 3. What I do personally is, right now when I'm eating in a fat loss phase, I'm eating 1,856 calories per day. I do 2 main meals per day, and then I basically have like 2 quote unquote snacks. Okay, I don't really call them snacks, but basically what that looks like is, in the morning I'm gonna have a protein supplement of 30 grams somewhere around 7 a.m. just so I can start getting my protein in. and I'm not trying to play catch up. And then I'll have my first main meal of the day, which will be about, I don't know, 35 to 40% of my calories for the day, somewhere between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Okay, that's usually when I have time to make a meal or eat my first meal. And then my second meal of the day is usually after I work out, and that's anywhere from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's where most of my calories and macros are coming. And then basically I have, after my second main meal, I have another protein supplement if I need a little bit more protein, and then any remaining calories that I have left, I eat after that meal. It's usually not very much. But this is what works best for me. And this 2 meals per day is just like works really well with my schedule. Okay, I'm not hungry first thing in the morning. I don't need to eat a full meal first thing in the morning. I rather just have a quick protein supplement, get 30 grams of protein in, save my first main meal for 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Okay, then, go on with my day. I end up getting my lift in. After my lift, I have time to make another meal between 5 and 7. There's my second meal of the day, and then whatever calories I have left, I have after that. Okay, so I hope this helps. And the main thing I want you to understand with this is it's individualized. 1 meal per day probably is not ideal. 5+ meals per day is probably not ideal. Somewhere between 2 to 4 meals per day. But the most important thing that you need to understand is it doesn't really matter how many meals we eat per day. Are we eating correctly for our calorie and macro breakdown? Because that's what's going to determine if we make progress or do not make progress. Okay, I can't say that enough. I know I've said it 100 times in this video. You can eat 1 meal per day, but if you eat too many calories, if I eat 1 meal per day, but I eat 2,200 calories, I'm not going to lose weight. Okay, so that's what's most important, is getting to this calorie and macro breakdown. If you found this video helpful, I got a bunch of other videos like this in my frequently asked questions PDF. The link to that is in my bio. Also in my bio is a link to join the PR Fitness League. We give you a training program, we give you a nutrition program, and you use both of those to score points. And whoever scores the most points at the end of the month wins cash money.